Hello again, everybody. This is Craig Evans of Autism Hangout, and thank you for tuning into this Autism Hangout special report. You know, there's an old adage that states it takes two to tango. And as it relates to our special kids, most of our focus has been on their behavior. Well, today's guest is a professor, a researcher, and an author with some insights that'll cause us to revisit just how much a parent's positive behavior can have on their children's behavior. His book is called Optimistic Parenting, Paul Brookes publisher. Autism Hangout, please welcome today's guest, Dr. Mark Durand. Welcome, Mark. It's nice to have you here.
Thanks, Craig. I really appreciate your invitation.
Most of the time, as a parent of a special needs kid, we are looking at the kid trying to figure out what he's telling us. And because of that, there's a fair amount of consternation that's part of our behavior. We're not necessarily optimistic. Your research has shown that how a parent approaches a child with a more positive, optimistic attitude can make all the difference in the world. So, what is it as parents that we might be doing that's blocking that we can change?
Well, it's a real good question, and it actually comes out of a lot of my research. I started off doing research on behavior problems and developing interventions, positive interventions for behavior problems, and to be used by parents and teachers and staff. And what I saw pretty quickly was we could intervene successfully with behavior problems, but some families, some teachers, some staff couldn't carry it out. Mm-hmm. So that began a line of research to figure out why, what's going on here, and why is it that these people are having difficulty. Mm-hmm. And the number one obstacle was pessimism. Mm-hmm. So if you don't think your child can improve, or if you don't believe in yourself as a parent or a teacher, then that attitudinal obstacle will get in the way. And that was more important than how severe the child's behavior problem was, what their diagnosis was, as an obstacle to success. Oh. And so we recently started to look at these attitudinal obstacles to see if we could help.
The name of the book is Optimistic Parenting. Can you define for us what are the characteristics of an optimistic parent?
Right, and it's important to realize optimism can be misinterpreted. It doesn't mean you walk around all day with rose-colored glasses on saying everything's fine, everything's wonderful. My child, who has some difficulties now, will be perfect someday and fulfill everybody's dreams. It really is a realistic look at your child's ability to improve, which we know any child can improve, mm-hmm. And your own ability as a parent to make that happen. Mm-hmm. And so what we're trying to do is look at confidence, again, confidence in child and confidence in yourself, so that you get up the next morning and you do it again. Mm-hmm. And you get up the next day and you do it again. And that really is kind of the bare bones of what I consider optimism in parents.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, so many of us have to get up day after day and face the child and face the situation. It's really hard to maintain that level of positiveness. As the Bible says, I believe, help my unbelief. How can a parent maintain being optimistic? How can a parent maintain there is a chance for my child to change? Do you have some tips for these people?
Yeah, and one of the things, and that's why I wrote the book, is to first become aware of some of the thoughts going through your head. So if your child's screaming in the supermarket, we help parents and kind of walk them through the stages. Well, what are you thinking? Mm-hmm. And the first stage is usually I'm upset or I'm frustrated. But then we probe a little bit more, and I have a quiz in the book to help with this, but we'll start to say things, well, I think other people are judging me. Mm-hmm. Well, if you think other people are judging you as a parent, you're going to start to get anxious, you're going to start to panic, you're going to start to do things that you might not want to do, like, here's a cookie, let's get out of here. Right. And so the first step really is insight. What are the things that I'm thinking? Are people judging me? Do I think poorly of myself as a parent? Sometimes we have parents who say, well, it's the diagnosis. The diagnosis is what's wrong. And so therefore, when things don't go well, it's because of the diagnosis, which mm-hmm. makes you give up, makes you pessimistic about the future. So the first is insight. And then once you start to understand what it is that's going on in your head, what are you thinking, then we provide a couple of different techniques. One is distraction. So we had one set of parents who's had several kids with disabilities in their home. And at times, it was chaos. Mm-hmm. Kids are crying, screaming, carrying on. And the distraction technique we came up with them and they picked the word was yippee-ki-yay, which at the time I didn't know what that meant, and I had to look it up. And it's a line from a movie, Die Hard, that I wouldn't say over the video what it really meant. But what it was their way of saying to each other, instead of how horrible is this, this is terrible, it's always going to be a problem, they said, how bizarre is this? And isn't it kind of funny? Mm-hmm. And getting to realize that most families are bizarre at times. Most times, there are times when this just gets crazy. So you go, okay, this is crazy, but it's not going to deter me from my plan. Mm-hmm. What is it that we're supposed to do? How should we work together? And not let this get us upset, not let us kind of give up and say, gee, I know it wouldn't work. So we use distraction. We use substitution is a helpful one, where instead of thinking I'm a bad parent, we sit there and go, no, I'm a good parent. I put a lot of time and effort into my child, mm-hmm. and I'm actually in control of this situation. Mm-hmm. And, we have parents, this is actually a big theme for parents, is everything is out of my control. And, I felt that as a parent myself. But when you look at it closely, you actually have some control. You can say, hey, even in the worst case scenario, we'll leave. We're in the pediatrician's office and he's having a meltdown, so we'll leave. And you have some control. And the goal is how to then remind myself, okay, this isn't out of my control. I can do something about this. Mm-hmm. And so what we're trying to do is, one, get them to start to think, what are the things that are going through my head? How can I replace them or distract myself? And then what are my plans for my child's behavior?
Mm-hmm. I notice the book is filled with a fair amount of diagnostic material as to not only how you're feeling and how you can approach a situation, but understanding more about your child. There's something else I wanted to mention. You also have tips and tools in the book for transitioning and specifically sleep problems. You actually wrote a book on sleep problems called Sleep Better. Do you care to talk a little bit about some of your background in that area?
Sure. Early on, I worked in the area of behavior problems and tantrums and screaming and yelling. And about 27 years ago, when my son was born with multiple difficult sleep problems, I started to ask the parents that I was working with, hey, by the way, how does your child sleep? And as we, are well aware now, a lot of kids with disabilities have significant sleep problems. So at that time, I started to ask questions about what's out there, what do we know, and did a number of studies looking at, again, positive, non-medical interventions for sleep problems. Mm-hmm. And that culminated in the book Sleep Better, which is really, in many ways, similar to the Optimistic Parenting book, kind of a step-by-step. What kind of a sleep problem is this? Because that's important. All sleep problems aren't the same. Mm-hmm. Is this just, I'm not tired? Is it a circadian rhythm, meaning a biological clock problem that a lot of kids have problems with? And so we kind of walked parents through. And then again, and similar to the Optimistic Parenting book, we not only designed an intervention for the sleep problems of the child, but one that fits the needs of the family. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the lessons we learned early on. If the parents can't do it, it's not going to work.
Right.
And that's what this is all about.
Okay. The name of the book we're talking about today is Optimistic Parenting. Dr. Durand, where can people go to find this book today?
Amazon.com is probably the easiest, and my publisher will hate me for saying this, but the cheapest. But you can also go to Paul Brookes' website. There's an interview with me, and also it points out that the book just won an award, a Mom's Choice Award, a gold medal. So we're really proud of that. Since it just came out.
Yeah, congratulations. And where can people go to get more information on you or get in contact with you?
My email address is fine. It's vdurand, V as in Victor, at mail.usf.edu.
Very good. Very good. Dr. Durand, thank you for what you do for our special kids. Thank you for the research. Thank you for being a speaker to the autism community and an authority on so many things. You are very much appreciated.
Well, thank you, and I appreciate you having me on.
My pleasure. And thank you, Autism Hangout. I'll be back again soon with another special report.